I want you to stop whatever you are doing right now. Put down your phone for a second, take a breath, because what I am about to share with you is not just a story, it is a confession. It is a wound that I kept hidden for years because I was too proud, too stubborn, and too lost in my own world to admit what was happening inside my own home. The night my 7-year-old son, Zayn, pretended to be my wife, I didn't understand what was happening at first. I thought it was a game. I thought it was one of those cute, innocent things that kids do, something you laugh about at dinner, something you post on social media with a heart emoji and move on. But it wasn't a game. It was a message, a quiet, heartbreaking, desperate little message from the smallest person in my life, the one who loved me the most and the one I had been failing every single day without even knowing it. By the time I understood what he was trying to tell me, I was sitting on the bathroom floor at 2 in the morning, crying harder than I had cried at my own father's funeral. And I am not ashamed to tell you that, because if my shame keeps even one parent from going through what I went through, then it is worth every word. So sit down, get comfortable, and let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Imran, I am 34 years old, and for most of my adult life I believed that being a good father meant one thing: providing. I grew up poor, not the kind of poor where you feel romantic about it later, the kind of poor where your mother skips dinner so her children can eat. The kind of poor where you wear the same pair of shoes through 3 winters because there is no money for new ones. The kind of poor that follows you into adulthood like a shadow you can never shake. So when I became a man, when I got married to my beautiful wife Sana, when our son Zayn was born, I made a promise. A silent, furious, all-consuming promise to myself that my son would never know what it felt like to go without. He would have everything. New shoes, good food, a warm house, vacations, birthday parties, whatever it took. And I delivered on that promise. I worked God how I worked. I was up at 5 in the morning every single day. I was in the office before my colleagues arrived and I was the last one to leave. I took phone calls during dinner. I answered emails at midnight. I missed school plays and birthday parties and parent-teacher meetings because there was always something more urgent, always another deal, always another deadline that simply could not wait. Sana used to say to me gently at first, "Imran, Zayn asks about you, he asks where Baba is." And I would say, "Tell him Baba is working, tell him Baba is doing this for him." And she would go quiet. That particular silence of hers, I knew it well. It was not the silence of agreement. It was the silence of a woman who has said the same thing so many times that she has run out of new ways to say it, so she simply stops saying it at all. I told myself she understood. I told myself that when the business was more stable, when the loan was paid off, when the next milestone was reached, then I would slow down, then I would be present, then things would be different. That is what I told myself. I was a fool. The year Zayn turned 7 was the year our marriage began to quietly fall apart. I do not mean that there were screaming fights or broken dishes or dramatic ultimatums. It was nothing like that. It was far, far worse than that. It was a slow withdrawal, a gradual cooling. Like watching summer turn to autumn and then to winter, so slowly that you barely notice the change until one day you look outside and the trees are bare and the ground is frozen and you wonder how you never noticed it happening. Sana stopped reaching for my hand. I stopped asking about her day. We became 2 very polite strangers who happened to share a house, a child, and a last name. We were kind to each other, we were functional. But the warmth, that particular warmth of 2 people who are truly seen asterisk by each other, that had gone somewhere I could not name. I noticed it, of course I noticed it. But I was so deep in the story I had been telling myself that everything I was doing was for my family that I had no language for what I was seeing. I could not admit that my presence in the house was merely physical, that I was there in body but completely absent in spirit. Meanwhile, Zayn was watching everything. Children always are, we forget that. We think that because they are small and distracted by toys and cartoons, they are not paying attention to the emotional weather of the house. But they are the most sensitive barometers in existence. They feel every shift in temperature, every cold front, every silent storm. Zayn started doing something around this time that I dismissed as a phase. He started carrying a little notebook with him everywhere. He called it his important book. When I asked him what he wrote in it, he would go shy and hold it to his chest and say, "It's private, Baba." I smiled and ruffled his hair and thought nothing more of it. I should have paid more attention to that notebook. It was a Wednesday in November. I remember it was November because the cold had only just arrived, that first sharp-edged cold that reminds you winter is serious business. I had been in back-to-back meetings for 12 hours. My phone had died at lunch and I had borrowed a charger from my colleague and spent the rest of the day in a fog of caffeine and urgency. By the time I got to my car at 8 in the evening, I was a hollowed-out version of myself. I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes before I could even bring myself to drive. Just sat there in the dark, head back against the seat, listening to the silence. My phone buzzed, a message from Sana. Zayn waited up for you, he has something to show you. Please try to come home before he falls asleep. I stared at that message for a long moment. And I am ashamed to tell you this, my first thought was not asterisk I need to get home to my son. My first thought was I am so tired. My second thought was he'll be up again tomorrow. I replied leaving now might be late. It was not a lie, but it was not the truth either. It was the kind of statement that is designed to manage expectations rather than make a promise. I stopped at a petrol station on the way home. I sat there for 15 minutes eating a stale sandwich and scrolling through work emails because I told myself I needed to decompress before I walked through the door or I would bring all the tension of the day into the house. But the real reason? The real reason was that I was afraid, not of anything specific, just afraid of the weight of everything waiting for me at home, the weight of a wife who had gone quiet, the weight of a son who waited up for me, the weight of the person I was supposed to be and kept failing to show up as. I was afraid that if I walked through that door with nothing left in me, they would finally see the truth that I had given everything to everything else and there was nothing left for them. So I sat in a petrol station parking lot eating a bad sandwich at 8:45 at night. By the time I got home, it was 9:30. Zayn was asleep. Sana was at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. She looked up when I came in. She did not say anything, that silence again, that precise, specific silence. He waited up, she said finally. I know I got held up. She nodded, stood up, poured the cold tea into the sink. He had something he wanted to show you, she said. He practiced it all afternoon. I'll see it tomorrow. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and the expression on her face was not anger. It was something much harder to bear than anger. It was the look of a person who has decided, quietly and finally, to stop expecting something. She went to bed. I stood in the kitchen for a long time in the dark. 2 weeks after that night, something happened that I did not understand until much later. It was a Friday. I had come home at a reasonable hour, 7 in the evening, which for me was practically a half day. Sana was visiting her sister that evening, something she had told me about several days in advance. It was just me and Zayn for the night. I was looking forward to it, I want to be honest about that. Those solo evenings with Zayn were the times when I felt most like a father. We would order pizza, watch a movie, he would fall asleep on the sofa and I would carry him to bed and feel in that moment like I was doing something right. We had our pizza, we started a movie. About halfway through, Zayn climbed off the sofa and said very seriously, Baba, wait here, I have a surprise. He disappeared upstairs. I waited, mildly curious, mostly tired. Eyes drifting back to the television. 5 minutes later he came back downstairs. I looked up and my heart did something strange. He was wearing one of Sana's cardigans, her favorite cream-colored one that was so big on him it nearly reached his knees. He had found her reading glasses, the ones she left on the bedside table, and put them crookedly on his face. He was carrying the big mug she always drank her evening tea from, filled with what turned out to be water. And he had a phone, his little toy one, the plastic one shaped like a real phone that he used to pretend call his grandmother on. He walked into the living room very carefully, very deliberately, in the way children do when they are performing something they have rehearsed. He sat down in the armchair across from me, the armchair that was Sana's chair. He crossed his ankles the way she crossed hers. He picked up the toy phone and pretended to scroll through it. Then he looked up at me over the rim of the glasses and said, in a voice that was trying to be deeper, older, more grown-up than his 7-year-old voice could manage. How was work, Imran? I stared at him. He waited, glasses crooked on his face, Mama's cardigan swallowing his small body, mug held carefully in both hands. I did not understand what was happening. My brain was slow. I genuinely thought that this was some kind of role play he had seen in a cartoon. I played along. Work was good, buddy. He nodded slowly the way Sana sometimes nodded when she was listening. Are you tired? A little bit. Did you eat? I had pizza. He nodded again, then very carefully he set down the mug. He put the toy phone face down on the arm of the chair, exactly the way Sana put her real phone face down when she wanted to give her full attention to something. And then my son looked at me with the most serious expression I have ever seen on a child's face, and he said, Baba, I need to tell you something. Something shifted in my chest, some alarm, quiet and deep. Okay, I said. He took a small breath, and then he said in his own voice now, no longer performing the grown-up voice, just his own small, clear 7-year-old voice. Mama cries at night sometimes. When she thinks I'm sleeping, I can hear her. The room went very still. She cries quietly so she doesn't wake me up, he continued. But I wake up anyway because I sleep light. You always say I sleep light like Dada, remember? I could not speak. I don't know why she cries, he said. I asked her once and she said she was just tired. But Baba, he paused here, and in that pause there was the weight of everything. She only cries on nights when you come home late, or nights when you don't come home. I felt the back of my throat close. I made a plan, he said. He reached into the pocket of Sana's cardigan and pulled out his little notebook, his important book. He opened it very carefully. I could see that the pages were covered in his handwriting, the big round letters of a child who is still learning to form them. I wrote down all the times Mama was sad, he said. And I wrote down all the times you were late. And Baba, he looked up at me and his eyes were so clear, so utterly without guile, they match every single time. I felt something crack open in the center of my chest. Something I cannot describe with any precision except to say that it was like a room in my heart that had been locked for a very long time had its door suddenly kicked open. I practiced being Mama, he said, because I wanted to show you what she looks like when you come home. I wanted you to see her, because I don't think you see her, Baba. I think you look at her but you don't see her. He closed the notebook. He folded his small hands in his lap. And he waited. I would like to tell you that I held it together, that I said the right thing, that I responded with the wisdom and grace of a man who had just received a profound gift from his child and understood it immediately for what it was. But I did not hold it together. I put my head in my hands and I cried. Not polite, contained, dignified tears. I mean the ugly kind. The kind that comes from somewhere so deep inside you that it bypasses your throat entirely and comes out as something close to a sound of pain. I cried in front of my 7-year-old son in the living room of my own house while he sat across from me in his mother's cardigan and reading glasses, still and watchful as a small owl. After a while, I don't know how long, I felt the sofa cushion compress beside me. A small warm body pressed itself against my side. A small hand found my arm. Don't cry, Baba. I put my arm around him and held on. I'm sorry, I managed. It's okay. No, baby, it's not okay. None of it is okay. He was quiet for a moment, then he said with the devastating logic of a child, Are you going to fix it? Yes, I said, and I meant it with everything I had. Yes, I am going to fix it. He leaned his head against my shoulder. Good, he said, because I don't want to be Mama anymore. It's really hard. And somehow, through everything that was breaking inside me, I laughed. It came out wet and broken, more like a sob than a laugh, but it was real. And Zayn laughed too, that high, bright sound of a child who has just realized something is funny, and for a moment we were just the two of us tangled together on the sofa, laughing and crying at the same time. But even in that moment, I was aware of what lay ahead of me. There was a woman in this house, my wife, my partner, the mother of my son, who had been quietly bleeding for months, maybe years, while I walked past her every day convinced I was doing everything right. And I had to go to her. I put Zayn to bed that night. We read 2 chapters of his book, a thing we hadn't done together in months, I realized with a pang. He fell asleep with his cheek on his hand, glasses and cardigan back in their rightful places, his important book on the bedside table. I stood in the doorway looking at him for a long time. Then I walked down the hall to our bedroom. Sana was back from her sister's. She was in bed, reading, and she looked up when I came in, that automatic, slightly guarded look of a person who has been managing alone for so long that another person's entrance into the room requires recalibration. "He's asleep?" she asked. "Yeah," I sat down on the edge of the bed, not my side, her side, right next to her. She looked at me curiously. "Sana," I said. "Mwah. I need to talk to you, and I need you to let me say the whole thing before you respond because I don't know if I'll be able to say it twice." She closed her book slowly, set it on the nightstand, turned to face me. And I told her everything. I told her what Zayn had done, about the cardigan and the glasses and the notebook, about the list he had made, every late night, every missed dinner, every night she had cried, matched up in the careful round handwriting of a 7-year-old who loved his mother enough to become a detective on her behalf. As I talked, I watched her face move through about 40 different expressions. Surprise, tenderness toward Zayn, pain, something that looked like grief, something that looked like relief, and then eventually tears, but quiet ones, not the kind that come from being hurt, the kind that come from being finally truly seen. When I finished talking, she was quiet for a long time. "He heard me," she said finally. "I was so careful. He said he sleeps light like my father." She smiled at that, even through her tears. "Sana," I said, and my voice broke on her name, broke right down the middle. "I am so sorry I have been so absent. I told myself I was doing it for you, for Zayn, but the truth I haven't wanted to look at is that I was doing it for me. For the scared little boy inside me who grew up without enough and swore he would never feel that way again. I made you and our son pay for my fear, and I am so sorry." She looked at me for a long moment. And then she said something I have turned over in my mind every day since. "I didn't need more, Imran. I never needed more. I just needed you." 6 words: I just needed you. I had spent 7 years building an empire of provision, the house, the car, the vacations, the savings account, when all she had ever asked for was the one thing I kept withholding: my presence, my attention, myself. I reached out and took her hand. She let me. And then she leaned her forehead against mine, and we sat like that in the quiet of our bedroom for a long time, while the house breathed around us and our son slept down the hall with his important book beside him. The next morning, I asked Zayn if I could see the notebook. He thought about it very seriously, the way he approached all serious decisions, and then handed it to me. I opened it at the kitchen table while he ate his cereal and watched me with those dark, watchful eyes. The notebook was about 30 pages long. He had started it, I could see from the dates, almost 8 months ago. Each entry was simple: a date, a few words, sometimes a drawing. October 3, Baba not home for dinner, Mama quiet. October 9, Baba home late, Mama said she was fine but she wasn't. October 14, Baba on phone all through dinner, Mama cleared the table by herself, I helped. October 21, Baba missed my assembly, Mama came, she clapped loud so I could hear her. November 1, Baba came home and Mama smiled, real smile, not the small one. That last one hit me like a fist. He had developed a taxonomy. He had noticed at 7 years old that his mother had 2 kinds of smiles, the real one and the small one. The real one was reserved for moments of genuine happiness. The small one was the one she wore like armor. And he had been tracking which one appeared based on my behavior. November 15, Mama cried last night, I heard her, I pretended to be asleep. November 16, I made a plan. That was the last entry, 2 days before the night of the cardigan and the glasses. I closed the notebook. Zayn was watching me over his cereal spoon. "It's a good book," I said, my voice was not entirely steady. He nodded. "You did a very brave thing," I told him. "What you did last night, it was very brave." He considered this. "Were you angry?" "No, baby, I wasn't angry, I was sad, but the good kind of sad, the kind that makes you want to be better." He seemed to accept this. "Are you going to be better?" he asked, in that direct, unsparing way of children who have not yet learned the social graces of letting things slide. "I'm going to try my hardest," I said. Every day. Every day." He nodded satisfied and went back to his cereal. "I want to be honest with you now, because this is not a story where everything magically fixes itself overnight. Changing is hard, real changing, not the kind where you make grand declarations and feel good for a week and then quietly slide back into the old shape. I mean the kind where you have to dismantle beliefs you have held for decades. The kind where you have to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. The kind where you get it wrong and have to try again and wrong again and try again, until eventually the new way starts to feel more natural than the old. I went to a therapist. I want to say that plainly without shame because I think too many men treat seeking help as a defeat rather than a strategy. I found a therapist and I went twice a week and I sat in his office and pulled apart the story I had been telling myself about what being a man meant, what being a father meant, what all of that working and providing and hustling was really in service of. It was in those sessions that I understood something that should have been obvious but wasn't. I had been parenting my trauma, not my child. Every decision I made, every late night, every skipped dinner, every missed assembly was made by the little boy who grew up poor, not by the adult man who had a son waiting for him at home. I had never separated those two people. I had let my wound do my parenting. Sana and I also went to therapy together. Couples therapy is another thing that men, especially men from my culture, tend to resist. We are taught that problems are private, that you manage your own house, that asking for outside help is a kind of weakness or disloyalty. I had believed all of that. I was wrong about all of that. Those sessions were not easy. There were conversations that felt like surgery, necessary and painful in equal measure. There were things Sana told me that I had to sit with for days before I could respond to them without becoming defensive. There were things I told her that I had never said aloud to anyone, things I was ashamed of, things I had buried so deep I barely knew they were there until the therapist found them. But we came through, not unscarred, but together. Let me be specific about the things I changed because I have learned that vague intentions are almost useless. You cannot change in the abstract, you have to change in the particular. The first thing I changed was my phone. I turned off work notifications after 7 in the evening. Not silenced, turned off, deleted the work email app from my phone entirely and accessed it only on my laptop. This sounds small. It was not small. It was the first boundary I had ever drawn between work and family, and it was violently uncomfortable for about 3 weeks, and then it became normal. The second thing I changed was dinner. We ate together. Every night that I was home, we ate together at the table, not in front of the television, not with phones present, not as a rushed interlude between work and sleep. We ate together and we talked. At first the conversations were awkward. We had been out of the habit for so long that we had to remember how to do it. But within a few weeks, Zayn was telling me things at the dinner table that I had been missing for years. About his friends, about the games he played at recess, about the book he was reading, about the things he worried about and the things he found funny. I had missed so much, so much. The third thing was harder. It was learning to be present even when I was present, which sounds like a paradox but isn't. I had been physically home many evenings while my mind was entirely somewhere else, mentally composing emails, running numbers, planning the next day. My body was in the room but my attention was not. Sana had experienced this as an absence even when I was technically there, and she was right to experience it that way. So I learned slowly, imperfectly, with many failures and restarts, to put down whatever I was carrying when I walked through the door. There's a trick I learned from my therapist, a physical gesture that acts as a kind of ritual. Every evening when I pull up to the house before I get out of the car, I take 60 seconds and I deliberately set down in my mind, consciously with intention, whatever work thing I'm carrying. I say to myself, that can wait. These people cannot wait. And then I walk in. It sounds almost laughably simple, but rituals are powerful precisely because they are simple and consistent. The fourth thing I changed was learning to notice Sana. I know that sounds like it should be automatic. It isn't. After years of not noticing had become my default setting. I had to actively retrain myself. I started paying attention to the small things: when she seemed tired, when something was bothering her, when she needed a hand with something she was doing alone. I started asking not as a performance, but because I had relearned how to be curious about the person I had promised my life to. We fell back in love, gradually, imperfectly, beautifully. In Sana's small smile, the armor smile, I started to see it less and less. I have been a father for 7 years, but I became one, really became one, on the night my son put on his mother's cardigan and sat in her chair and looked at me over her reading glasses and asked me how my day was. Children know everything. I do not mean that in the magical, mystical sense, I mean it in the most practical sense. They absorb everything, they process everything. They love with a totality and a clarity that adults have usually buried under years of self-protection and social performance. And when the adults around them are failing, children will find a way to sound the alarm. They may not have the words, they may not have the language, but they will find a way. Zayn found a way. He made a notebook, he kept a record, he formed a plan, he rehearsed, he performed. And when I failed to come home in time to see him perform it the first time, on that Wednesday when Sana sent me a message, and I prioritized a stale sandwich in a petrol station parking lot over my waiting child, he simply waited. He held his plan and he waited until the right moment. and then he executed it with the precision and the courage of someone who had decided that the stakes were too high to give up on. He was 7 years old. 7 years old, and he had more emotional courage than I had shown in 7 years of being his father. I keep the notebook on my desk. Not Zayn's, he still has that, it is his. I bought a new notebook and I keep it on my desk and I write in it every day, not observations about other people. Observations about myself. Am I present today? Did I see the people I love today, truly see them? Did I let my fear make my decisions, or did I make them myself? Every day, a practice in accounting. Zayn is 8 now, he has grown 3 centimeters, which he measured himself and announced to us with great formality. He still has his important book, though I believe it has graduated from emotional reconnaissance to something more creative. The last time I caught a glimpse of it, there appeared to be a story involving a dragon and a submarine. On the anniversary of the night with the cardigan, I had marked it in my own notebook without planning to, just noticed the date and realized I took him to his favorite place. A small park near our house with a creek running through it and a rope bridge that he has loved since he was 4. We sat on the bridge, legs hanging over the edge, throwing small sticks into the water and watching them float away. After a while I said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "That night, the night you pretended to be Mama, were you scared?" He thought about it, genuinely considered it, in the way he considers serious questions, with that slight furrowing of the brow. "A little," he said. "I was scared you'd be angry." "Did you think I might be?" "Sometimes you're tired and you get a little angry," he said, with the diplomatic honesty of someone who loves you and is also not going to lie to you. "That's fair," I said. "But I thought," he paused again, "I thought even if you were angry it was worth it, because what if you weren't, what if it worked?" I looked at him, this small person on the rope bridge, feet swinging, watching his stick navigate the current below us. "Where did you get that kind of courage?" I asked him, "at 7 years old?" He looked at me sideways, a small smile at the corner of his mouth that was, I realized with a start, exactly Sana's real smile. "From Mama," he said simply. "She's brave every day." I did not trust my voice to respond to that. We sat in silence for a while, throwing sticks. Then he said, "Baba." "Yeah. Are you better now?" I thought about it honestly, not performing, just thinking. "I'm getting better," I said, "every day." He nodded. "Me too," he said. And we sat on the rope bridge above the creek until the light started to go golden and the sticks had all floated away, and it was the best evening I can remember in a long time. If you are still with me, and I hope you are, because I have more to say, I want to speak to you directly now, not to a general audience, to you specifically. If you are a parent who recognizes yourself in this story, the absent presence, the provider who provides everything except themselves, the person who has convinced themselves that working hard is the same as being there, I want you to hear this without judgment and without gentleness, because the time for gentleness has already passed for too many of us. Your children are keeping score. Not because they are transactional, not because they want to punish you, but because love keeps score, because love pays attention. Because the people who love you most are always, always watching, watching for evidence of your love in return, watching for proof that they matter, watching to see whether your actions and your words are the same thing. And if they are keeping score, as Zayn kept score in his important book, the question is not whether they are wrong to do so. The question is what the score says about you. Your partner is tired in a way that has a cause. I know it is easy to see someone's sadness or their withdrawal or their silence as a personality trait, as something they bring with them, something innate, something that has nothing to do with you, but most of the time that is not true. Most of the time the distance your partner has put between themselves and you is a direct response to the distance you put there first. They did not move away, they stopped following you. And I know it can feel impossible to face that. I know that guilt can be so overwhelming that it is easier to not look at it at all, to keep busy, to keep working, to keep providing, to do anything other than sit still long enough for the truth to catch up with you. But the truth will catch up with you, one way or another. Better that it catches you while there is still time to do something about it. The work will always be there, they will not. I know you know this, everyone knows this. It is one of those things that everyone nods along to at funerals and then forgets by the time they are back at their desk on Monday morning, but I am asking you to actually know it, to let it land, to let it change something. Your children will be children for a heartbreakingly short time. The window in which you can be the hero of their world, the person they run to at the end of the day, the face they want to see first thing in the morning, that window is measured in years, not decades. It is already closing. For some of us, it has already closed and we do not know it yet. Do not be the person who figures this out after. I asked Sana when I was writing all of this down whether she wanted me to tell her side of it, whether she wanted me to share what it had felt like from where she was standing. She thought about it for a long time. She is a thinker, my wife always has been, and then she said, "Tell them what I told you in the bedroom that night," the 6 words. "I just needed you. That's the whole thing," she said. "Everything else is just details." But she also said this, and I want you to hear it. "I never stopped loving him. I want people to know that. I didn't grow cold because I stopped loving him. I grew cold because I was protecting myself. Because when you love someone completely and they are not there, not really there, every day is a small loss. And after enough small losses, you start to wrap yourself up so the losses hurt less. That's not coldness, that's survival." And then she said, when he changed, when he really changed, not just promised to change, but changed, it was like watching the sun come out after a very long winter. The wrapping up started to come undone, slowly, but it came undone. She paused. "Tell them it's not too late," she said. "Unless it is, and they'll know if it is, but most of the time it's not too late. Most of the time there is still a person inside the distance who is waiting to be found." I am going to end where I began, with my son. Zayn, my small, serious, stick-throwing, dragon and submarine-riding, cardigan-wearing boy saved us. I do not think that is an exaggeration. I think without the intervention he staged on that Friday evening, Sana and I would have continued our slow drift until we were so far from each other that the distance was simply part of the landscape, accepted, permanent, unremarkable. He saw what we could not see or would not see. He felt what we had stopped allowing ourselves to feel. And then he did something about it with the tools available to him: a notebook, a cardigan, a pair of reading glasses, and the particular courage of a person who has not yet learned that things are not supposed to work out. I think about the version of my life where he doesn't do that, where he keeps his notebook and keeps hearing his mother cry and learns, the way so many children learn, to simply endure the emotional weather of his home. Where he grows into a teenager and then a man with a wound he can't name, a longing he doesn't understand, a template for relationships that shows him love is a place where people are present but absent, there but not there. I am grateful every single day that he did not do that he had enough faith in me, despite everything, to believe that I could be better if only I could be made to see. That faith was not earned. He gave it to me freely, the way children give love, without reservation, without condition, without the protective hedging that adults have learned. I am trying every day to be worthy of it. Epilogue, what we are now. It is Sunday morning as I finish writing this. The light is the particular gold of a winter Sunday, the kind that looks warm even though it isn't, the kind that turns everything it touches into something that could be in a painting. Sana is in the kitchen making tea. I can hear the kettle, the clink of cups, her humming. She always hums when she cooks or makes tea, and I had forgotten that about her, or maybe stopped being still enough to notice it, but I notice it now. Zayn is still asleep. He stays up too late reading and sleeps late on weekends, and we let him because it is the weekend and he is 8 and childhood is already going so fast. In a little while I will go down and Sana will hand me a cup of tea and I will say thank you and mean it, and she will lean into me in the kitchen the way she has started doing again, and we will stand there for a moment in the Sunday light. In a little while Zayn will come downstairs with his hair sticking up and demand pancakes, and I will make them even though I am a mediocre pancake maker at best. And he will criticize the shape of each one with the cheerful brutality of someone who does not have to make them, and we will laugh. In a little while we will sit at the table, the 3 of us together on a Sunday morning, and it will be ordinary and unremarkable and thoroughly, heartbreakingly wonderful. And I will think, as I think every morning now, of a small boy in an oversized cardigan and crooked reading glasses, sitting in his mother's chair, holding her mug in both hands. How was work, Imran? The question that cracked me open. The question that saved me. I owe that boy everything. Final message from me to you. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of something, if you recognize someone in it, yourself, your partner, your own quiet child with their own important book, please do not let that feeling go when the video ends. Hold on to it, take it home with you. Take it into your next conversation, your next dinner, your next ordinary evening with the people who love you more than you know. The most important thing I have learned in all of this is not something complicated or profound. It is almost embarrassingly simple, but simple is not the same as easy and knowing is not the same as doing. Here it is. Show up fully, consistently, not when it's convenient, not when you have enough energy left over after everything else. Show up first, make the people you love the first investment, not the last surplus. That is it, that is the whole thing. Your family does not need your best hours, they deserve your best hours, but they will take whatever you give them. They will love you through your absences and your failures and your worst moods and your most distracted evenings. Don't make them prove it. Don't make them dress up in your partner's clothes and sit in your partner's chair and ask you how your day was just to get your attention. Go home early tonight. Sit at the table. Put down your phone. And really look at the people in front of you. They are waiting. They have always been waiting. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. A friend, a sibling, a parent. You never know who Zayn is still writing in their important book, waiting for the right moment to be brave. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Until next time, take care of the people who take care of your heart. Broken heart.